I thought a familiar was only like something that was around a witch. Like that's all the information I had about it. But this is so cool and so interesting. You need to watch this one. I got tagged in it. It is really good. And let me know what you guys think in the comments. Like, do you have any information about this? I need to learn more.
So before I jump in, I just want to say I am not a person who actually believes in this kind of stuff, but it does scare the crap out of me. So when I was a kid, there was this neighborhood cat that would come to our basement window and it would kind of just like look in and watch us play. And this became like a known thing in my family. Like we would just be sitting in our basement, like playing with our action figures or whatever. We'd look up and this like cat would be staring in the window at me specifically. And sometimes I'd be like sitting in my house or playing or whatever with my brother. And out of the corner of my eye, I would think that I saw a cat, but we did not have a cat. We had a dog like my whole life. And so I just started being like, oh, my little imaginary friend, Jake the cat. I am having so much difficulty filming this. It literally keeps deleting itself. Like this story does not want to be told. So anyway, the cat would sometimes follow me home. So I would be walking home from school. It would be following me. And then, we would part ways, whatever. It would go do whatever a cat does. I don't know. And over the years, the cat, stopped showing up so much. I am assuming that since I am old now, it probably passed on. And I also stopped seeing it out of the corner of my eye so much, like that shadowy cat that I was seeing. So fast forward to junior year of high school. I'm sitting in my physics class. I can remember this so vividly. I'm sitting in my physics class and I'm taking a test. And I wasn't particularly good at physics, but that's a story for a different day. So taking my test and out of the corner of my eye, as solid as I saw the real cat itself, I see a black cat. And I stood up and screamed because I was so scared. And everyone around me is like, the hell are you screaming about? And I, being like the indignant, argumentative child that I was like, there's a cat right. And there was no cat. So I'm pretty freaked out. I'm also really scared that for some reason they're going to tell my parents that I saw a cat and disrupted the physics test. But so I just don't mention it when I get home. I don't tell anybody. In fact, I stopped mentioning it altogether because I'm also taking AP Psych that year and I'm like very terrified that there's something going on that's like not right. And so I stopped seeing this cat completely. I hadn't seen, the shadow out of the corner of my eye in quite some time. Fast forward another bunch of years. I am in New York City and I'm going on like my third date with a boy who ends up being my fiance. Spoiler alert. And I take him to this place that's really hard to describe, but basically we got separated and I ended up getting a psychic reading. So I'm sitting with the psychic and she says to me, I'm going to do your tarot, but are you aware that you have a familiar? And I go, oh, what? And she's like, you have a familiar. It's a friendly spirit who follows you and is meant to guide you, on your spiritual journey. And then she says, and I'm telling you, this was like without any prompting. She was like, but I think it seems like it's like reluctant to reveal itself to you because I think you had a negative reaction to it in the past. Like I'm sensing some sort of like screaming or whatever. And I was like, okay. And she was like, it also likes to take the shape of a cat. And I was like, oh my God, it's my physics class cat. So she goes on and she tells me that the spirit wants me to know that it's, it's a good spirit. It's here to guide me. It's only friendly. It's only been trying to bring me luck my whole life. And I was like, well, thank you. And she was like, you can welcome it in. You can welcome it in. And I was like, that's so scary to me, but thank you. Fast forward another couple of years. I'm out at a bar with my girlfriends and there's another psychic there. And as I go to get my tarot read, again, a totally separate psychic years later goes, are you aware that you have a spirit that follows you? And I go, what kind of spirit? What kind of spirit's following me? And she was like, oh, it's a familiar. It's a good spirit. Huh. So again, I don't tell a soul. Not a single soul am I telling about this. Fast forward to 2020. My boyfriend and I move into a house together that my parents own on a lake in New Hampshire. And I start to see out of the corner of my eye again, a shadow. And this shadow ain't a cat no more. This is like a full ass out of the corner of my eye, or like the shape of a man. All right. So I'm really, really like perturbed that it has changed shape. It's giving me the same feeling, but I'm just like, I don't want this in my life. So I ignore it and I don't mention it to my fiance. A couple weeks go by and he says to me, Jane, and he's really not a person that like believes in this stuff. Like I definitely believe in it more than he does. He's like, Jane, I have to tell you, this is going to sound super weird and like, please don't think I'm going crazy, but sometimes when we're in the room together, I'm like seeing this weird shadow out of the corner of my eye. And it's only when you're around. And I'm like, oh, that's my familiar. Oh, that's just the little cat. That's just the cat I grew up with. Okay. And he's like, what are you talking about? And I was like, I don't know. Don't worry about it because I don't. So a couple more weeks go by. We're both seeing this shadow all of the time. And I'm just like, I'm starting to get a little freaked out by it. So I wait for him to go out and I'm in the living room, alone. And I decide I'm just going to try to talk to it, which probably was a bad idea. And I don't even remember what I said. I think I just said something like, hello, are you there? The cable box on top of the TV shorts out. And it says, hello. And I was like, that's enough. That's enough. That's enough. It wasn't enough. So my fiance and I are in bed later. I actually don't remember if this is the same day or if this was a couple days later, but later. And sorry. I literally am seeing it out of the corner of my eye. I'm scared. We're sitting in bed and all of a sudden we hear a door open. A bunch of rustling and then a door close. And so I'm like terrified. But when I'm like actually terrified in a moment, I get really like I have to take action. So I ran into the kitchen, I grabbed a knife and I'm like, whoever's there, I have a knife and I'm gonna, like, this is my house, blah, 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 like threatening essentially. And my fiance's like, get in the room. Like his teacher training is kicking in, like trying to secure the area, whatever. He calls the police. The police come. They check every single part of that house, the whole surrounding area, and the camera footage that my dad has. Not a single living thing comes in or out of that house. Nothing. There's nothing. Must have just been the house settling, right? Like, house settling can open a door. So we laugh about it. Like, my fiance and I are like, oh, ha ha ha, like, city folk, being in the country, the lights playing tricks on your eyes, whatever. Couple months later, it's the summertime, my brother comes up, we're sitting on the beach, and I go through this whole thing, and I tell him, and he is like Mr. Atheist, like, I believe in nothing, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, Jane, I really, really, really don't want to scare you. And I would not make something like this up. But when we were younger, when you were around, I used to see that black cat out of the corner of my eye. I'm literally crying. So if anybody has any information about familiars or like whatever, like I can still see it sometimes. It's big. It's no longer a teeny tiny black cat. And I just try to ignore it. I just try to ignore him. I can tell that it's a male spirit. I don't know. But yeah, that's my weird ghost story. It's not really a ghost story. I don't know. It freaks me out a little bit. But yeah. So